I'm just wondering here whether the message you had, for example, during John Kennedy's presidency, where he reached out to Republicans on a tax cut, or Ronald Reagan, where he reached out to Democrats to get legislation through, whether that would even be doable.
Actually working together and not demonizing each other and not drawing those lines and literally saying, you are my enemy because I disagree with you, or because you disagree with me, or because you have a different religion or race, because it's when that happens that we see unfortunate tragedies like today occur.
All right. Yesterday, Hawaii Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard saying that the tone has got to change in Washington. Well, good luck with that. I mean, one other possibility is trying to widen the pool of security for those who serve in Congress, maybe, to my next guest, liking all United States congressmen and women, all senators as well. The Democratic congressman who is among those supporting that. He's not the only one, by the way. It's John Garamendi, and he is here. Very good to have you, sir. Thank you for coming.
Sure. Good to be with you, Neil.
We had one of your colleagues talking about in the prior segment, sir, this notion that maybe congressmen and women should be armed, that they should be allowed to, especially if they come from a carried state, to carry a weapon. What do you think?
Well, if they're from a carried state, I suppose they could. They certainly don't want to have weapons in the House of Representatives or anywhere around the Capitol building. It seemed to me that would be a very serious problem. I've got a problem with the carry law itself. There are a lot of bars you simply don't want to walk into. But in any case, the issue of security for members of Congress, clearly when there is a threat, and many, many members of Congress have received very serious threats, they do need security. The rest of us, we go about our daily life. We go shopping, we go buy our groceries, we do the things that most every other American does. In that context, I don't think we're going to need security. But when you're out in public and you're doing a town hall or some other kind of event, yes, security is appropriate.
But you're out in public when you're at a grocery store.
Well, it's different. It's really different. You're there anonymously in most cases, although many of us are known in our local community.
I would recognize you in a minute in the local Safeway. I would stop and talk to you. But, you know, that has raised concerns, that whole aspect, and I see where you're coming from. So the expense notwithstanding of all of this, a former colleague of yours, Congressman Doug, also of California, said, and I'm quoting here, people are supposed to be able to come up and go, yeah, that's you. Went on to say you can't build walls up around elected officials. That's not what they're supposed to do. The president might be a little different, but not these 535, referring to the number of congressmen and senators we have. What do you say to that?
Well, I think there are situations that you need to have security. As I said a moment ago, there are very serious threats against many, many of my colleagues. Over the years, I've certainly had my share of threats. Those need to be significantly investigated, and frankly, the Capitol Police, the state police, or even the FBI ought to be knocking on the doors of those individuals that are putting those serious threats forward.
But I mean, if you think about it, Congressman, if there was an open carry law in Washington, D.C., we would not have had to rely on two Capitol Hill police people who were guarding Congressman Scalise to be the saviors of the day, and thank God they were. This could have been mitigated much more immediately by those there.
Well, I think they were in baseball uniforms, so I doubt that they had a handgun in their back pocket. Nonetheless,
but an open carry, many do, right?
When they're out on the ball field, I'm not going to be playing in that game. I don't want to be the umpire either.
Well, I don't know. Have you been to these states where that is? They have it on them under all venues.
Well, we got to be very real here. We're talking about members of Congress. We don't need to go into all the issues about the gun laws around the nation. But what we do need to know that there are serious threats in those circumstances.
Look at your own district where you're talking about, right? I mean, one of the strictest gun laws in the country, one of the most crime-plagued districts, regions in the country. Chicago, same deal. One of the toughest gun law cities in the nation, one of the most crime-plagued cities in the nation.
Well, there are many, many reasons why you have high crime, why you have...
Absolutely, but maybe give the victims a fighting chance, right?
Well, in most cases, the great majority of the cases, the victims are family members. And suicides. That's where most gun violence occurs. So I don't know how you're going to deal with that.
Several of your colleagues, right?
That's correct. And thankfully, we did have security there at the ball field. That was the good news. The carrying issue is not, I think, relevant here. What is relevant
so that measure by your colleague here would be dead on arrival, at least with you.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question, Neil.
I apologize. That measure to allow you and your colleagues to carry, that would not go anywhere with you.
I don't want to be in a situation where here in the House of Representatives or in the Capitol or the Capitol grounds there are more guns around. I don't want to have our police officers face a situation where there are numerous guns around, even though they may be our guns. Maybe our staff, I don't know how far you want to go with this. We don't need more guns around the Capitol. We don't need more guns around our offices.
But of course, the Capitol's a different beast, right? Because at least in the Capitol, that building you're in, you have protection in that building, in your offices. It's when you leave those offices, it's when you leave those confines that you potentially, sir, in great danger, as are your colleagues, right?
Even in California, as you said, a state that has very strict laws, an individual, member of Congress or any other individual can go to the local sheriff and be able to get a permit to carry a gun. That's possible. You can't carry it concealed, but you can get a permit to carry a gun. So if I or any of my colleagues feel threatened in California and probably in most other states, they could get a permit to carry a gun. Now,
but
we've
you
got
got a permit to carry a gun almost anywhere. The question is, if you can't carry it with you, I mean, then you're right. We can go back and forth on this. I guess my issue here is how is it going to be solved? Blessedly, as you pointed out, these are rare events, but they've happened enough for others to take notice, and the tone is such that a lot of people are fearing on the left and the right. It's just a matter of time before it happens again. Do you fear that?
Well, in those situations, when we're out in public, when I do a town hall in Colusa, California, a small community, the local police, city police in that case, they will provide security at that event, and we're thankful for that. And they want to do it for all the reasons of our security, also security of the crowd. That's standard procedure.
And because of what's happened at these recent events, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so that's appropriate. Now, when we have a situation of a threat, we report those threats to the Capitol Police, and the Capitol Police will investigate, and in many cases, they'll go knock on the door of the person that issued that threat. And that's appropriate, too. Now, we've got so many other things. Fortunately, we don't want to raise the rhetoric here. We don't want to raise the rhetoric about gun laws and so forth. What we want to do is reduce the rhetoric. We want to solve some problems here that are fundamental to this nation, everything from the Affordable Care Act repeal issue to tax cuts to deficits. All of these things are fundamental. What are you going to do about Russia?
You see what some of the criticisms are, what you would like to do, open the possibility of having protection for yourself and your colleagues, that it could compromise that rhetoric, that you won't be able to talk to folks because you'll have guards with you all the time. You'll have police with you, whatever.
That's not the case. That's not the case. I was lieutenant governor in California. I was the insurance commissioner. For 12 years, I had a security detail with me wherever I traveled. They were always in the background. They never, ever caused any problem with me interacting with any constituent unless there was a serious threat, which did happen a couple of times. But I went about my business as though there was no...
If that constituent's upset and some guy with an Uzi is going to walk up as I'm talking to you, then you can understand how that person would be less willing to talk to you because there's this dude with an Uzi right between us.
That would be a problem, no doubt about it. And that conversation would end very quickly.
I hear you. All right. Sir, thank you very, very much. Good seeing you. Please be safe.
Thank you, Neil.